haven't done anything yet. Okay. I just edited this so quickly. This is what you'd have seen when you signed up to this presentation, like to see this talk, and you'd have seen, I only discovered this after like this went up. I knew that I was going to do a talk. So here's Ash Winter's description, and you'll see it's quite long. And then there's mine. I just got a message over Twitter saying, what's your presentation about? And I just kind of typed it in. There's even a spelling mistake right there. And hopefully you read that and thought...
Take that in context.
Hopefully you read that and thought, wow, in those, I don't know, 3 lines, he's written something that I really want to see. And then I also discovered that I had been booked in for 50 minutes and Ash only had 30.
You don't have to fill
yeah.
Oh,
I didn't change the presentation. But that kind of got me worried, but it's okay. I've done this before. So I'm going to talk to you about how I can write my Webscript with no alphachars. It comes down to filter dodging. Why I did it was because of filter dodging. And it just kind of teaches you some good lessons on what JavaScript does under the hood. And you can do these things because you know what JavaScript is doing, essentially. And I'll talk you through what JavaScript is doing, why I can do stupid things. So the contrived example, or the reason why I was actually looking at this, there's a website called Alert Want to Win. Link of it's there, the slides are online. And at some point you do a bunch of challenges. You've basically got to put code in that would get past some filters and do an XSS on a website. And you've got various different challenges. They do different things, and the Scandia challenge basically goes, hey, I don't care what you give me, I'm going to put everything in uppercase, and then put it on a web page, just straight in uppercase. And I'm trying to alert 1 in order to win. That's how, as soon as it alerts 1 on the page, then I get a winning thing, and I get like a letter, wow, you managed it in this many characters. Let's see, I've got some nice low scores. But JavaScript doesn't like uppercase, so if I try and type in alert and it goes into all uppercase, JavaScript just goes, oh, it's not declared. I don't know what alert is. Like, it needs to be lowercase. So how do I get around that? I don't know if any of you know this. I will explain it shortly, but there's a thing called JSFuck, which is hilarious and great. And I already knew about it. I could just use that, and in fact, it does solve the problem. But the problem with that is JSFuck gives you 1,232 characters of code to put into this thing. And that seems a bit large. I mean, you're looking here, I've managed most of them about 30, maybe 12 sometimes, or 13 is the last I've got there. Should be able to do this in small amounts of code, something you could tweet out to your followers and really fuck them over. So, I don't want to be using JSFuck, but why not learn how I can take JSFuck and optimize it? What is JSFuck doing? How can I optimize it so I can, and perhaps learn about JavaScript at the same time, but mainly I'm just trying to get those characters down so I can win better. So what is JSFuck? It only uses 6 characters. We have the curly, normal brackets, plus square brackets, and exclamation mark. With these 6 characters, you can make any JavaScript in the world. You could write any single thing. Like, it is fully compliant JavaScript. I could run this on fucking Internet Explorer 4 for all I care, and it'll run. It's completely valid JavaScript. It's not even like, oh, I need to be running on fucking the ES7 or something like that. Completely thing. The only problem really is it kind of ends up really long. So if I want to do alert 1, that becomes 1,227 characters. It's different to the previous one because in the previous one I'm counting in how much it would take me to win the challenge, not just alert 1. And then if I wanted to do a map and console log some numbers out, it becomes 23,000 characters. That's kind of big, considering that's, I don't know, I didn't count that, probably should have 15, let's say. So to give you an idea of what JSFuck looks like, I mean, this is alert 1 in JSFuck, and you can see the syntax highlighter stops about here. And obviously you can tell what's going on until the syntax highlighter craps out. But, you know, up until that point, this makes sense. You know, you're just getting arrays of array, you're calling it, yeah, makes sense. If I'm trying to get the document cookie, it looks even worse. That is JSFuck of alerting a document cookie. That might look suspicious as well if you're trying to send that down a packet. But how does JSFuck work? And more importantly, how does JavaScript allow this kind of stuff to happen? Basically, you all love JavaScript and its type coercion. It's brilliant, it's glorious, it always works. And it uses that to make strings from nothing. And another thing you should learn in JavaScript is that everything is an object. There is no exception to that rule. Everything is an object. Don't worry. So from type cohesion, we've got a couple of rules here that I will soon demonstrate. So the string is king. If it can be calculated a string, it is a string. If there's any strings anywhere, everything else becomes a string. It is a string. Things are strings. You'll know this if you ever use web forms. Everything comes in as a string. You told it to be a number, it's a string. You've got to convert it to a number again. Positively numeric, if you put a plus in front of things, it will try and convert it to a number. It's a useful thing to know. And truthiness. The exclamation mark you probably use as logical not. You can double it, and then you can find out the truthiness of something as it turns it into a fault, like it knots it and then knots the knot, becomes a boolean, true, false. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to swap to, as long as this comes up on screen, this is classic bash. I'm going to go into Node, and I'm going to do some demonstrations so you all understand what exactly JavaScript is. So the first one, I mean obviously that's going to be true. And 1 triple equals 1. Hopefully you all realize that you should be using triple equals, never use double equals. A string of 1, is that triple equals to 1? No? Of course it isn't. Is 0 double equal to false? If I can spell false. I should probably put this as a duplicate one. False is not defined, I put a capital in there because I hit caps lock. It's still on record. It also helps that I can't see it on my dot clear. There we are. This is terrible. 0 double equals false. And it didn't even numlock. True. Sorry. Is foo true? False. And does foo equal false? False. I don't know why that's gone both ways. I can't remember why. Probably done something wrong there. Anyway, so string is king. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 1 plus string 1 equals 11. 1 plus 1 plus string 1. What do you reckon that equals? That's 21, obviously. What about, I told you that string is king, but what is 11 as a string minus 1? That's 10. Because obviously you can't minus a string. I said before that you can make numerics. Sorry, wait, I've got previous one, sorry. 4 double equals to array of 4. Is that true? Of course it is. If you want to know why that's true, you should look into the abstract equality information. But it makes perfect sense. Basically, that goes to string. When you just string an array, it just puts the objects of the array in. And then that's a string. Is that equal to a string? Well, it can be. If I turn that 4 into a string, that becomes string 4. String 4, they're equal. Go on then. 4 double equals string 4, just to prove that. That's true. So then, positively numeric, obviously I can take a string of 10, and if I put plus in front of it, it becomes actually 10. I can do that with a minus 10, it becomes minus 10, so I've got that string I've now put into a number. That's really useful to know, actually. What is the numeric value of a empty array? That's 0. What is the numeric value of A? Well, that's nan. It's not a number. What is the numeric value of an empty object? That's also nan. Even though an array is 0, but an object is none. And what if I 1 plus plus thing 1? So 1 plus plus string 1. What's that going to be? That's a syntax error. But if I remember to put my space in, well, that's 2. Truthiness. Negative of true is false. I could probably make this bigger for you guys, sorry. Should have done that earlier. Negative of 0, not 0, is true. So that means 0 is false. Not 314, false. If you know how booleans came about, you should know why this makes sense. As I said, you can stack them, so not true is still true. And I can find out what is the falsiness of an array, an empty object. Well, an empty object is true. An empty array is also true. What is not array? That's false. That makes sense. Given we've seen there then, so we know that an array is truthy, and an array is technically truthy, an empty array is false. What's that equal? Well, that's true. That's abstract equality for you. If you look into it, basically that gets converted to a primitive. That can be summarized as a boolean straight away. So that becomes false. When there's a false on one side of the equation, the other one gets changed to primitive, which becomes 0, which then becomes equal to false because double equals false, double equals 0, as I said earlier. Perfect sense, you know. This is what you code in every day. 0 not equals array, true. I mean, we said it's falsy. 0 double equals general empty array. It's also true, by the same merit as I said how it figures it out. 1 plus empty array triple equals 1 plus empty string. Is that true? It would help if I didn't have a double equals there. 1 plus empty array thing. What's that equal? That's true. Why is that? It turns out that this turns into a string even though it's 0. So you've got 1 plus a string somehow, and then 1 plus a string. It's the same thing. It becomes 1 as a string. Just to prove that. Empty array, 1 as a string for some reason. So I've already said the empty array is not equal to array. Another good one, which I'm just throwing in here, but it's not really relevant to everything else. What is 0.38 minus 0.37? Well, obviously that's a 7. If you want to know why that is, it's interpretive octal base. And basically, that can be octal, that can't be. But it goes, oh wait, that can't be octal. Don't worry, I won't let you know about that error. I'll just use this as decimal. But that one can be octal because you put 0 in front of it. So don't worry, I'll use that as octal. But you forgot that you shouldn't put 0. It's fine. So with that is my talk on that bit. If I can make sure my mouse is on this side. So we've learned the basics of what's screwing up under the hood of JavaScript there. How do I make a string from nothing? So I already said that if you plus an empty array, you get a string for some reason, or it stringifies it. I can get false with not equals an empty array. If I plus an empty array onto that, I get the string version of false for some reason. I get false as a string, which is actually really useful. Because then I can, if you plus a string, you concatenate onto the end of it. So I've got false here, plus the thing to make it a string, plus true, because not of an empty array is true, and I get the string false true. That's really useful actually. Because I can get the word alert out of false true by taking these places within that string. This is basically why JSFuck works in a nutshell. You basically create strings out of jack shit, essentially. Add reference a place in it, because we know that trues can be evaluated to numbers. I can put plus in front of a true, it becomes 1. I can get any of these numbers by just doing loads of empty arrays plus empty arrays plus empty array, as long as they're numbers, so I put spaces in between I don't even need to put spaces between the additions because I'll bracket them. So therefore I'm adding trues, I'm converting trues to numbers, adding them up to get number 2, and then I'm putting a string at the end of this and say get the number 2 position of this, false true. So what kind of strings can we get? This is not an exhaustive list. You'll notice that I left it empty because I got really bored. But you can get object date and stuff like that. True, false are obvious. Undefined, just call an empty, like a key that doesn't exist on an object. You can get number, string, function. That's just type-ofs. You can get functions of number of native code, which is, I think that's node specific. You won't get that. Or it's either node specific or WebAssembly. It's been a while since I did this presentation, but that was from one of the two. It wasn't in both of them. You can get Boolean. You can get object date, you can get object array using various little hacks. So you can get a whole bunch of different strings, and you'll notice that using this, we can somehow probably get most of an alphabet. We can't actually get everything. And I'll tell you where you can look into that later. But for our purposes, that's enough. Everything is an object is the next thing I needed to talk about. Everything has a constructor. No matter what it is in JavaScript, it has a constructor. You may have seen new date. You go, oh, it's a constructor. That makes sense. You may know that there's a new string. You probably shouldn't use it, because why would you use it? You've got template strings. But it turns out even functions have constructors. So you can call a new function of B. So you've got B, you call a new function on it, or you can make a new function. So the object that wraps a function is the function class. As a constructor argument, it takes a string argument, which basically represents the code that the function is, and that it would like to be. It's basically an eval. You new function with the code, and then you can eval it. So how do we get a pointer to that in the first place? Obviously, if I'm going to call that, I need to get to it so I can pass it arguments. We've already got the empty array. That's an array. Arrays must have methods. They're prototypes. Any of the methods on that will be constructed via a function constructor. So the constructor of a method equals the function constructor. So this is the shortest one where you could use map, but you can't get the characters of map really easily. You can get sort really easily though. True, true, object, and false. There's your characters for that. Constructor gets a bit more messy. You have to put in some other undefined. I can't remember. I've got the list at the end of this next bit. But if I call array, sort, constructor, I get function. That's the same thing. If I pass that a string argument, it will create a function that does that string. It essentially allows me to eval that. So if I want to do anything in JavaScript, I can get to that and then put a string in. I've already told you I can make strings out of anything. So I can make these strings, I can make these strings, I can make a string that goes in as an argument. So I originally said that my main objective of this was I already know JSFuck, and I can get there within about 1,200 characters, but I want to make it a lot shorter than that. And how can I do that? Well, if I kind of loosen off the rules of JSFuck that say 6 characters only, well, suddenly I can use the semicolon, I can delimit my statements, so I can put it all in one line, but I can have different statements to go along. I can declare variables with an underscore or a $sign. As soon as I've got the first character, I can actually put numbers after that, so I can have any variable I want, essentially, as long as it starts with underscore, I can have as many as I want. And I want to use object notation because it's just a bit faster. It just makes things a bit quicker. What does that look like? So this is alert 1 written in not quite JSFuck, but doing it my way with no alpha characters, with a bit of an explanation here. So I've got false, the string thing, true, an object, and then I've got an undefined parameter within the object. So I get a string that says that on the top there. And if I take the various places out of that, I can say, so I start with an array, and then call the method, which is 3, 10, 6, 5, which ends up being sort in that string, constructor. And then this says alert, and then, well, I'm just alerting one, so I don't even need to string that thing. But there are no alpha characters in that. And it's only 146 characters, which, didn't quite fit on the old tweets. It fits on the new tweet, great. That's fine. Luckily, Twitter updated, so I could push this out. Basically what this comes out as, I've declared the underscore as a variable. There's my string, function, call alert, and then instantly call it again, so I've wrapped it in an IIFE. I never remember it properly, but it's disgusting, but it works. You've seen that and you've thought, wow, that's great. I've got a really low score on that, 146, down from 1,200. Realistically, this is the actual problem. You can see what it does there. It tries to uppercase everything. HTML doesn't give a crap about uppercasing. I can tell that to be whatever it wants to be. It turns out that I don't have to include most of this. Because of the way the challenge is set up, I have to put HTTP in, but if it was actually served on a website, then I wouldn't even have to include that. And I can serve this locally. I could mess around with my etc.hosts and say that X, the domain, points to whatever I want it to, and serve up whatever script I wanted to, which is just I want to get alert 1 in there. So I think I got this down to, that's 36, 38, I think I got it down to like 31 at one point. So if you're doing this challenge, your challenge is actually to get lower than that. Don't try and just copy my score before. I end the presentation as most people begin it. Who am I? Don't worry about pronouncing my name. I started in university doing digital electronic engineering, embedded systems, did a lot of that, it was fun. Came out of uni, I'm now being touted as a JavaScript dev. That's what I've been doing for the past 2 years. I break lots of things, that's what I always do. It means I want to learn how to fix them, and it means I need to know what goes on under the hood. It kind of explains why I did what I did, looked into the stupid things of JavaScript and why it does what it does. There's a GitHub there. I use the GitHub pages because, yay, free. My presentation is up on there if you want to see it. There's also a script, so when I was flailing away at my git bash, there's actually a script that you can run at home and it'll do it all for you. And I could have pulled that up if it failed even more, but I thought, plug on anyway. Yeah, I've got a Twitter account as well if you want to follow me for the rare times I tweet. Homework. Alert 1 to win, lots of fun, do it in Chrome. There's a bug with one of the challenges in Firefox. The node typing away in git bash part of this is heavily inspired by WTF.js by Brian LaRoe. Very good talk, you should definitely watch that. Goes into great detail, does a bunch more of these kind of stupid tricks in JavaScript, and WTFJS.com is a kind of encyclopedia of this kind of stupid thing. That's where I heard about the 038 minus 037 stupidness. There's also a great one of a regex that doesn't look like it should be a regex, but then evaluates the whole page. Just silly things that you wouldn't expect. If you want to learn more about JSFuck, go to eslangs.org. They've got a great explanation of JSFuck and how it kind of works a bit more. I kind of scratched on the surface, but you might have questions on like how do you get the letter X. If you want those kind of questions, the GitHub page for JSFuck, there's a website called JSFuck if you just want to try it, by the way. The GitHub page that backs that contains in a file you can see how it gets every single character. So there's certain characters you can get, as I've said, from true-false object undefined. You can get a whole bunch of characters from that. But if you want to get your Zs, your Xs, your Qs, you end up having to do character code at this string of value this. And this page basically shows how you do that. And it's how the JSFuck thing can take any JavaScript and compile it down into JSFuck for you. I say compile it down. It's mainly transpiling.